Hello, listeners. We are having a draw for a free adjustable
I'm
riding
Catherine
belt from
Sheeran,
Rachel Ford
host of
of
the
PH
podcast
Clothing
Horse
Company.
Tales
All you
with
need to
Cat.
do is
My
follow
guest
at
today
PH
hails from
Clothing Co.
Montreal,
on
Quebec,
Instagram
Canada,
and
but
message
now
me
finds his
directly.
home in
Good
Europe.
luck and happy
Eric
riding.
Lamaze has experienced both the best and the worst that show jumping has to offer. He is the only Canadian to have ever been a two-time individual Olympic medalist in show jumping, winning a gold medal in 2008 in Beijing and a bronze medal in 2016 in Rio de Janeiro. He was also part of the silver medal Olympic team in 2008. He won the Canadian Pacific $3 million class twice at Spruce Meadows and was the number one rider in the world in 2009 and 2010. He retired from active competition in 2022 and was named the chef d'équipe of the Canadian show jumping team shortly after. He held that role until February 2023. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And I want to start by letting our listeners know this is not a one-off. There are going to be several episodes, but today we're going to talk about Eric's past. And it's Eric's story to share. So we're going to go to the beginning. How did it all start for you in Montreal? You had not an easy childhood.
No, I didn't have an easy childhood, but I was always involved in sport. Sports was my passion, and that it was playing tennis or skiing. As much as school was very difficult for me, sports is something that I could catch on very quickly. I began my attachment to horses with a lady called Jeanne Dubuc from Montreal. She was a friend of my mother that took me on and started to take me to the stable. And don't ask me my age, I can't remember how old I was, but I started riding with her. And I must say, I was quite scared when I got started. I was not the bravest one in the world, but in time I conquered my fear. Diane was friends with a lot of people around the circuit. That's when the days where Saint Adele used to exist, Man in His World, shows like Quebec City. We went on following that circuit, and this is where I met George Morris, actually, and I was infatuated with the way he was teaching, with his method and everything else. And I was very much always an observer of the sport. I would always watch when somebody was teaching a lesson or working with a student. I would sit there and watch. I remember watching Ian Miller train his horses. I remember Mark Laskin with Damraz and his win and all that. I have a lot of memories of those days. Touch the Sun and Anthony D'Ambrosio, Man in His World winning the Hunter Classic. So I was a very good student of the sport. And from there, I learned so much myself, as long as having a good teacher like Diane that allowed me later on to move on to Toronto and work for Jay Hayes as a junior rider, riding some of his horses in the junior hunter and junior jumper, vice versa. He was very kind to me. And then led me on to Hugh Graham. Hugh was the first one to let me go to Europe to purchase horses for him, which was a big deal. He had a lot of trust in me. That adventure made me grow up a lot and made me understood the horse business.
I know as well, Eddie Creed had a very big role in your world, not as a trainer, but as a believer in your gift. Maybe you could share.
He had a big role in everything in my life, to be honest. Through Hugh Graham, I met Eddie Creed because Hugh Graham at that point had met Epstein and was going to go work for Epstein privately or whatever their deal was. So Hugh gave me a few clients from his place. I had to find a stable, and Beverly Creed, which was Jackie Creed's wife, so Eddie's daughter-in-law, knew of a place that Eddie owned, which was an ex-polo type barn, which was a little bit run down. And so I met Eddie with Jackie, very scary guy, fur coat, cigar, often going to Aspen. And we worked out, I remember being quite afraid of him. And we worked out a deal per stall. and there was 10 stalls. And within a few months, I ended up having 14 horses. So I rented from Craig some portable stall that I put in the shed. And then it was quite complicated because you had to take the one horse out to take the other one out and all that stuff. But we were mucking stalls. We were doing everything on our own. And that's how Torrey Pine got started, is that Eddie Creed. Eddie Creed had a daughter, Dodie, that used to ride, so he was familiar with the sport. I think he had invested in some horses with Hugh Graham as well. Eddie came down, and he was a man of a few words. He'd say, "Are you good enough to do this? Like, you think you're good?" And say, "Well, I never had the chance to measure myself against anybody with the caliber of horses that they have, because I was mostly a catch rider by then. I would ride what people didn't want to ride. I one day told Eddie I needed more stalls. We made an arrangement, and at the end, I can't quite recall how many stalls we had, but it was way over 60 stall in that 10 stall barn that we transformed into 60 stall, I believe. I was the first one to get the European footing shipped to Toronto, so that was quite something. We started mainly a selling business. I would go to Europe, find some horses, and we had quite the clientele. We had a lot of clients. This is where Eddie got more involved when he saw the traffic and everything. His wife, it used to drive her crazy because she was so meticulous with her garden and her road and this and that. And when she sees us driving up the road too fast or this and that, she never was pleased. But anyway, at the end, she ended up being a big fan of mine. And one day I asked to Eddie if it was possible for him to invest in a horse for me or buy a horse for me that had the caliber to jump in the Grand Prix competition. This is where Cagney came from. And Eddie invested in Cagney, and which I bought from Doug Henry. So by then, this is where things changed a lot for me. I represented Canada in Washington for the first time in 1993, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And my life changed a lot because of Eddie. Eddie was a great believer in me, and I was a great believer in him. He was like a father figure to me.
Well, I wanted to expand on that a little bit because number one, I thought that is amazing, the trust that he put into you, because as I recall reading, he'd never had anybody on his property and you were a stranger to him at the time and you were coming and going on his farm regularly. And the other thing that I thought was fascinating was, if I'm not mistaken, it was probably the first time when they purchased Cagney that they created a syndicate, which became
Yes.
a bit of a model for a lot of other Canadian riders who weren't necessarily in a position to be able to purchase their own. But by creating a syndicate, you were able to get a group of people to help support you and be part of the cause. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we put a syndicate together. Some of them were owners. Their daughter was riding with me or had something to do with riding. Some of them were pure businessmen, friends of Eddie. This is how we were able to put together. But at some point, we had some serious offer on Cagney to be purchased. Eddie said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, it's kind of a horse of a lifetime for me to get started in the sport. So it would be very hard to find another one at that price of what we paid." So Eddie ended up buying all the other people in the syndicate for me to be able to keep the horse.
Wow, that speaks volumes about his belief in you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I'm not mistaken, Cagney was I'm trying to remember, was he the one that took you to, yes, he was the one that took you to the World Equestrian Games and the World Cup
In Den
Finals.
Haag, yeah.
And so then from there, how did it come about? I mean, most people that don't know your real history just think of you and Hickstead, but Cagney was the one who kind of led the way. And
Yeah,
then,
Cagney led the way with winning those Shell Cup Derby, winning numerous Grand Prix.
and so at what point did Hickstead enter the picture and how did that all happen?
Well, there was a few horses after Cagney. Obviously, I rode a horse with Tommy Gayford, which I was very, very proud that Tommy offered. He gave me a horse to ride. His daughter didn't quite get along with the horse, and he chose me to ride it, so it made me very proud to do so. I won my first Grand Prix on this horse, actually. It was a horse called Big Deal.
Great name.
That was before Cagney. But however, Ixted came on a trip to Europe. I was doing a lot of business with Stefek Stable. We would buy and sell a lot of horses. When I got to Stefex that day, they had brought Ixted for me to try. I got on the horse, very unrideable. His running martingale was really short. He was really rank. The jump felt good, but I didn't feel Grand Prix horse or superstar or anything like that. I felt more like speed horse or something of that nature. I didn't quite see the power in the horse. And on top of that, he was very complicated and very hot together. I didn't think I had any use for him whatsoever. And then later on that trip, we went back to try him again. We didn't find anything else for horses, so we went back and try him again on an indoor ring where the horse lived. A lot of riders had tried the horse also.
Okay.
Nick Skelton, John Whitaker, they all tried the horse. Matt Cohn tried the horse. So I was like, if they pass on it, it's got to be for a reason. But anyway, I was bound and determined to make this go bad. Probably jumped as big as I could jump. I made it the most difficult trial that I could make it. And he answered all the questions, and he seems like he wanted to be mine. So it was impossible to leave him behind. I wasn't sure what he was going to become. He had a bit of a bad character, but that night he wanted to be sold.
I love that. He really became your heart horse in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. We had quite a bit hard beginning to the point where I wanted to send him back to Europe, but things came together. Jürgen von Butler did a great job with the horse on the flat to get him broke a little bit so I could ride it because he was really unrideable. And then he used to stop at the water and sometime at the Ingate and things like that. So he was a bit of a naughty boy. So we had to work through this issue, and you were not beat it, but you were not going to give him a smack with your stick one time and say, okay, let's go, let's move on. He didn't, he just ran and grabbed the bit and ran away and just enough to scare you. So you had to take your time on everything. And the water jump wasn't that he was scared of the water. He was scared, he didn't know how to jump it. So I figured out that faster I could get to it with the most pace as possible. And that gave him confidence to get across the water. And after that, he never had a water issue in his life, including stepping in the water.
I love that you touched on that because I think one of your gifts is probably getting inside the horse's head. And I feel like not everybody appreciates that a horse's disobedience isn't always just being stubborn and obstinate. It is sometimes a lack of understanding of what the
Absolutely.
job is that you're asking them to do. So,
Yeah, his deal was confidence. Like he used to stop at walls a lot because he couldn't see on the other side. And it took us a while to figure out why he stopped at a wall, but you were never gonna punish him with the stick or anything to make him understand that he had to go. I mean, it's one of those horses you just sort of, Jurgen always said that, you gotta ask him, would you like this? And if he said yes, well, then you went along with it. You were never gonna force him into anything.
and so you've mentioned Jürgen von Butler, who I actually had on the show last year. Share with our listeners your relationship with him because it's fairly unique and he for sure had a big impact on a lot of your horses because he was a master at the flat work.
Yeah, absolutely. I met Jürgen at Hugh Graham when I was there, when I worked there. I was riding Hugh Graham's horses on the flat and doing everything, driving the truck. He was doing really everything. And so when I left Hugh and went to Eddie, we stayed in touch and we're good friends. when I had enough horses to be worth his while to come and help me, we broker a deal, and he came and he helped me, and this is where I had Ixted. So he took on Ixted. Courtney Vince also rode Ixted for me many times. I'm the one probably that rode him the least. Ixted, I would mostly just jump him, but Courtney Vince rode him and did some good with him. But Jurgen really took his time and put him in a different zone.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by the international law firm of Cooley LLP. Clients partner with Cooley on transformative deals, complex IP and regulatory matters, and high-stakes litigation. Cooley has nearly 1,400 lawyers across 19 offices in the United States, Asia, and Europe, and a total workforce of more than 3,000 people. Our connection to the law firm comes through Cooley partner and jumper rider Cullen Drescher, who competes in the high amateur and Grand Prix levels, in addition to leading Cooley's business restructuring practice from the firm's offices in New York City.
We have Hickstead. You were probably one of the top picks for the team back in 2008. And if I'm not mistaken, did you not also go to the Pan American Games with him?
Yes.
And tell our listeners what transpired, because that's when the world really saw.
I can't really remember. I think I was bronze individual, but that horse gave 100% every time he was in the ring. But for one reason or another, that week he wasn't himself. Fire on all cylinders, and he was. I don't know if it's because the Pan Am game is smaller, the fences are smaller, and he didn't try as hard. But I must say, if I ever had to pick a show where he wasn't himself, it was the Pan Am game. He completely, I had to work hard to get a clear round out of him.
And so then you make it to Beijing, and that's when he really shines, and you shine, and the whole team shines.
What a weird start to it. I jumped clear with Ixted. I can't remember the first day what we all did, but the first round of the team competition, I think Mac Cohn had 2 down. Jill had a disastrous day with special ed, and I jumped clear, and I think Ian may have had a 4 faults or something like that, which pretty much didn't take us out of the equation because the German had a horrible showing. There was a lot of team falling apart. So even with that horrible score and counting Mac as it was 8 faults and Ian as a 4 fault round with 12 faults, I think we were still in the groove. Come to know the next morning that Mac's horse is hurt and he cannot start. So now all our hopes have gone down the drain. We know that Jill's horse is not wanting to play. She had a really, really high score. So me and Ian looked at each other and said, well, it's kind of gone. Miraculously, Jill, as she often did on the team, managed, I don't know how till this day, managed to jump the clear round from 28 faults the day before to jump the clear round. And then all of a sudden, we were back into it.
I have to interrupt you there because I remember that day because I was watching. Jill was my trainer at the time. And I remember getting up at the crack of dawn to watch the team event. Yeah. And she was also the first one to go clean that day, not just from the team, but in general.
Like overall, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember jumping up and down with excitement.
Yeah, we were jumping up and down, trust me.
And I can also tell you from speaking with Jill on the podcast, she was actually my very first episode. She spoke so much, Eric, about how supportive you were of her and of the team in general and of just your belief that you could all succeed. And that really stuck with her through her career.
Well, we were a team. I am a great believer. I love team sport. I love Nations Cup. I love Olympic. I love all that stuff is really the backbone of who I am. But I still didn't see the 0 on the board that day. I said the best she could do is eliminate a few rails, but she's still gonna have 8 faults. Anyway, what does she do? Puts 0 on the board, and then we're back at work. I believe Vickstead had 1 down that day, actually, and Ian rode one of the most amazing rounds to conclude the thing. And we ended up jumping, if I'm right, with the American for the gold medal. Yeah, we were a little bit outmatched, but because we were only 3. But nevertheless, having a silver medal at the Olympic by team, starting with 3 horses, wasn't too shabby.
And how did that feel? I often have asked riders, how did it feel being on the
Well,
podium?
it was my first medal at the Olympic whatsoever, so it felt fantastic. And I was so happy for Ian because he had gone so many trials without the medal that he finally got his Olympic medal. So I felt very, very happy for him that day, and felt that Jill had done the impossible.
So now you've done the team event, and it is kind of remarkable to me that these horses now move on to the individual. Maybe walk us through what that was like.
Well, I think only me and Ian will qualify for the final. I think Jill's high score the first day put her out of the final. So there we go. And it was a weird concept because the first round had, I think, 25 clear rounds or something like that. And I was last to go. And at that point, you know that if you touch a pole or you got a time fault, you're out. So I managed to put in a clear round to stay within the group. And then the second round, there was only 2 clears, me and Rolf. And then the other one had 4 faults. So the bronze medal ended up jumping for 14-way tie, I think, for the bronze medal. And then me and Rolf jumped for the gold and silver.
And now you've got a gold medal and an individual medal.
Yeah.
Some of the top riders in the sport have never experienced that. What was that like? That was a whole new level.
Well, Rolf had the wall down. How can I say it nicely? It was for me to screw it up. Really, Ixted was on top form. He was really looking out for the fences. He was jumping really careful, being rideable. And I said, I just got to follow his pace and then try to lead that wall up at the end. And that's done. So I said, not only it's completely doable, but you're an idiot if you don't do it. I just carried the pace that I thought he had. And I remember from the double, from the Oxford after the double, there was a long gallop to the wall. And I was asking myself, do I just run as fast as I can and knock the wall down and be the fastest 4? Or do I try to jump it clear? And I said, well, no Olympic should be won with knocking a wall down. So let's try to jump it clear.
And you succeeded.
And I succeeded, yeah. I turned around after the wall because you couldn't quite hear the blocks. It was so loud in the place that you could not hear if you had it down or not. So I looked back to make sure they were all there.
It was a phenomenal moment for all of us as spectators. I can say I still get choked up thinking about that moment because it really made us proud as Canadians. Just because typically we're the underdog in the equestrian world. So to have you prove that it could be done was just giving hope and inspiration to a lot of young riders. And I would say there's so many riders today in Canada that know that story. And that really made you and Hickstead a household name if you weren't already.
Yeah, but everything was done. I moved to Europe at some point and to compete with the best. And that's the best thing I ever done in my life. And the horse was ready. He had seen many European forces. He was really up to the task. Perhaps would have stayed in Canada, I wouldn't have had a chance like I did for that particular horse anyway.
Yes. And so you went on to have some great successes after that with Hickstead. If I'm not mistaken, you won the $3 million CP rail class. Was that twice with Hickstead after that?
Yeah, I won it twice. I won Aachen. He won the bowl. He won Rome. He won Madrid. He won Geneva. There's not a lot of things he didn't win. Yeah, there's just a few to mention.
And then sadly, I'm trying to remember which competition. It was in Italy that he,
Corona.
Corona. Of course, you would remember. And what year was that? Was that 2012?
Oh my God, I don't even want to know. I'm not sure, to be honest, at this point.
So he suffers an aortic rupture, if I recall correctly, and passes away in the ring. It's incredibly traumatic for him, for you, for everybody watching. And you walk away thinking, I don't want to do the sport anymore. You know, my heart horse has died. How do you go on from there? And yet you did. So tell us about that journey and that decision.
Well, it was a horrible day. Just finished completing my round, and Verona was known to be a big course, big challenging course. Just finished my round, and he was walking fine, and then all of a sudden he seems wobbly to me, and then I thought he stumbled and he fell to the ground, and this is where he started to erupt and move in every direction and whatnot. The show did an incredible job trying to manage the public and manage everything else. It was the saddest day of my life.
I bet.
Yeah. A, because it happened in the ring also, and B, because you just realize what you lost. So those two things are pretty catastrophic.
Mm-hmm. Probably, yeah. I was going to say that's catastrophic is probably even an understatement for how you were feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
So who did you have around you at that point to give you emotional support?
Oh, I was a mess. I was a real mess. I remember doing the top 10 in Paris the week after with a horse that was mostly used for speed classes, Coriana, a very good horse, but she was never asked to do something like that. I put her in the top 10 and she nearly won. I finished second.
Wow.
Yeah, so somebody was looking after me that day, but I never got over Ixted. Never, even till today. It's every horse you ride, you think something like that will happen. They'll break their legs or it's just once you live through it, you just can't. You really don't want this to happen again in your life. And with horses, you never know. But I'll never forget. I'll never forget that. And till this day, it's something that it's hard for me to deal with.
I imagine it would haunt you forever.
Yeah.
Because as you say, it was so unexpected, but then you realize it could potentially happen again in just a different form. So
Yeah.
I applaud you for being able to continue. So then you did take a brief pause, if I'm not mistaken. Was it?
Yeah, I took a brief pause. I was a complete mess. I tried to put a brave face and continue and whatnot, but it wasn't out of my head. It stayed in my head for many years. Yeah, I didn't do well at all. And I really felt like with years that would go by, things would get easier, but it almost seemed to get harder
Mm.
for whatever reason. It would seem to get harder and I don't know why, but it seemed to get harder. Maybe because there were more video on YouTube. Maybe because I don't know. It just became harder and harder to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. So then you found Fine Lady 5, and that
Yeah.
was your next mount that people probably heard the most about. Where did she come from?
She came from Germany. Gilbert the Rocket founder for me. We went to try her for Caitlin Ziegler for a student, and the mare ended up being too small when we got there. We were about to walk away, and Gilbert says, "Why don't you get on her?" And I said, "I don't need another speed horse. It's all I have." But I didn't see the scope in the mare to jump anything more, and she had some good result with her previous rider at 150, but that was about that. So anyway, I had jeans on and a running shoe, and I start jumping, and we put the fences up, and the mare jumped really well. But I'm still kind of convinced that she's just a speed horse, and I don't need it. I can't get her out of my head. I can't forget about the horse for whatever reason. Anyway, after a little short time of thinking things through, Artisan Farm went ahead with the purchase. I remember my first show was Rome, and I put her in a meter 45 class just to see, and I had 2 down. And I remember calling Gilbert afterwards and saying, "See, I told you, she's just a speed horse. I don't know what I'm doing with this horse." And he says, "Don't worry, don't panic. Just Anyway, so the next day I warmed up differently, and she ended up being second in a meter 50. And 3 weeks later, she was second or third in the Grand Prix in Chantilly. And then I just kept going with her, and I brought the scope into her, really. She wasn't scopy, but I brought the scope into her. She won the top 10 in Geneva, which was amazing. She won a lot of classes. She won 1 year, she won 4 classes in Aachen straight.
Wow.
Yeah, she was really a player. She knew what she was doing up there. She was a little cat. And then it led us to the Rio Olympic. The Rio Olympic, I had mixed feeling over it because I thought, okay, she can do a Grand Prix. She can come back for the jump off, but the Olympic is grueling. You jump many big rounds, and that I didn't think she had in her. I said she's gonna give up at some point or another, and she never gave up. She never gave up. That medal to me, individual medal means so much because I know what I was riding, and I know what she gave. And to me, it was incredible that she was able to almost have the gold medal. If it wasn't for that little silly vertical, I ended up with a bronze. So to me, that medal means the world to me.
It's interesting how mares will give you everything on any given day.
That one gave me everything and more. If you told me, I thought I was going to the Olympic to help the team, for the team event, but I thought for the individual, I would either stay out of it or do whatever. But how can you stay out of it when she keeps jumping clear round? So she was something else. She was unbelievable.
Well, I wanted to touch on what you had said about you brought her the scope. I was curious about how did you do that? What was your approach?
Well, I'm a pretty forward rider, and in time, with the rhythm that I put on the horses and the gallop that I gave them, they gain confidence. And if they have the blood behind them, I give them wings. And I ride very forward, and then she accepted that, and then she started to believe in herself, and then she got scopier. That's how I would explain that part that she got scopier, is I put a lot of rhythm into it.
I also wanted to ask you about your hand because I feel like your hand is very unique. It's very light, it's very educated, but it's always there. Where did that come from? I don't think I've ever seen you wear gloves, do you?
Yeah, I wear gloves.
Okay, because most of the rides I've seen you in the ring, it's your bare hands, which I wonder if that because it gives you a better feel of their mouth.
No, I find I have gloves. I like to stay connected to the horse's mouth throughout the rounds. Even if she's little and she doesn't demand as much backwards riding to fit in the lines because she just has enough stride to make the line, You'll never have to steady unless you're adding a complete stride for whatever reason. You pretty much don't need your hands to steady her. It was much easier for her to see the jump and just slow up herself when she sees the jump. But I do stay connected on course, as every rider should, to get to know. You feel a lot through the mouth of a horse of where it's at the moment.
So I wanted to shift gears and talk about some of your students, because I would say your other gift beyond your ride is your teaching. And I can tell you, I spoke with George Morris a couple of months ago, and he felt that you had a tremendous gift as a teacher. And so I think of Ainsley Vince, Tiffany Foster, Nina Malave. You gave a tremendous opportunity to Beth Underhill. Where does that teaching passion come from? And maybe we could touch on each of those students. Ainsley Vince being one of your earlier students that were great success.
Well, first of all, I absolutely love teaching. I love to give back knowledge that I've acquired over the years. To be quite honest, my writing career wasn't bad, but I think I'm a better teacher than a writer at the end of it. Just because I truly enjoy it and I give it 100%. Ainsley was very, very talented. Ainsley was the most talented person I work with. She could ride many horses, many different horses. She had no fear. She had a horse called Catch 22, which she ended up doing very well with. That suited her very well. She was an easy person to teach. She reacted immediately to what you say to her and she would adjust it. But there you were working with pure talent.
And then Tiffany Foster, how did that relationship start? I'm trying to remember who she was riding for at that point, and you came into the picture and helped move her along the trajectory of her career.
That relationship started as boyfriend-girlfriend.
I didn't have. Okay. I didn't know that. There you go. Lucky her.
No, we can laugh about it now. She was riding for Brant and Laura Beliski, and then we started dating. I brought her in on board as a rider. She had never really jumped over one higher than I think one. I better get the facts right because she'll kill me. 135 or 125. Anyway, and then we worked with her. She was a bit of an insecure rider. She would not. She would always ask him, "Can he do that? Can he jump this big? Can he do?" She was always worried about the horse and worried about herself. It took a long time to get confidence into Tiffany. We worked together very well. At the end, we won many, many Nations Cup, or we were on many teams together. She became a true professional from hard work, really just from hard work. She became a person that we could count on 100% when the team competition was on. She was delivered. There was always something she was worried about. And once you calm her down with that and you told her it was okay, she could deliver it. But she was a big part of Team Canada. We were glad to have her. But it was a slow rise. It was a slow rise because at the beginning she didn't have the horses. And then when she met the Ziegler, then they purchased some horses for her, which was great, would allow her to get a chance to step up into the big league and to do that. That was very good. And then we have a bit of a love and hate relationship throughout our thing. But, at the end, I felt that we understood each other. When I saw her go at the World Championship as a chef de keep in Denmark, and I saw her perform, I was like, well, this student is done, ready to go on her own, and ready to be who she wants to be, and ride who she wants to be riding like. She's done. My work is done. She put on a hell of a performance. To me, that was the end of our association as far as teacher and student. To me, she was made up.
Wow, that's quite a compliment. I also wanted to talk about Nina Malave, because I read an article about her and she actually said, these were her exact words, The best decision of her life was approaching Eric to work at Torrey Pines. Eric has this ability to make you feel so confident in a very special way. So she was in Europe. She said she had to drum up a lot of courage to approach you, but you never hesitated. What did you see in her that made her so special?
Well, Stefan Contea told me that she was a special rider. I did not know her at all. So she came to the stable and started, and I observed. And she had a few kinks that we needed to change, and we did that. But she was always very brave. She had a very, very good feel with the horses. Every horse liked her. And it was just to fix a few things with her that allowed her to even be better. I truly enjoy working with Nina, and I'm very much impressed with the success that she's having today, and feel like I was a small part of it.
You may have been a bigger part than you know.
Well, maybe, but at least I was a part of it.
We touched at the very beginning of my introduction of you to you've had some difficult times in your world of show jumping beyond losing Hickstead. You were also diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2017, and you didn't even let the world know until about a year and a half later. That had to be a really difficult thing to be going through on your own, and it would have impacted your riding. I know that eventually that led to you retiring from competition. I know that you see yourself as a better teacher than rider, but how did it feel to give up the competition part as a rider?
Oh, it was brutal. Brutal, brutal, brutal. As much as I love to be a chef d'équipe, as a chef d'équipe, we got bet to win the Grand Prix of Le Bowl. We were second in the Nations Cup. Rome, we're not having a good day. We still finished fourth. I have two people on the jump off. Life can be better. We're having training camp, which I believe in, before every show. Things are really looking up for Team Canada, like really looking up. But it was so difficult to be in your running shoes and just on the side there. I I just couldn't do it.
Well, and you arguably have, for lack of a better word, got more out of the Canadian team than any other chef to keep in history, in my mind. I can say watching.
Yeah, we had incredible success, like really incredible success. When's the last time another Canadian other than me won the Grand Prix of the Bowl? When's the last time the Canadian team were second in the Bowl? When did we put two riders in the jump off in Rome? We had the worst day. Tiffany's horse slipped before triple bar, three strides before she had the circle. We had no luck that day, and we still finished fourth.
Phenomenal.
It was a strong fourth. I said to myself, I said, if that day went our way, we could have won this. The girls were riding great. Everybody was on their game, and things were really looking up.
What I also remember of that time period is you gave Beth Underhill an incredible opportunity. Beth is unmistakably an amazing rider, but she was at a later stage in her career where no one would have expected her to have this opportunity, but you made it happen and partnered her with Nika V.D. Bishop, and she had tremendous success. How did that decision play out?
Well, first of all, I'm a friend of Beth. I know what Beth's capable of doing. I had not seen her really ride lately, to be honest. To me, she was A, Canadian, B, a very good team player. I've ridden on the team with her before, and she could ride any horse. The question is, how current is she? That I did not know. But we quickly made her as current as we can be. Beth was a good rider. It was a good decision for me to bring her on. And I don't regret that whatsoever. And our time together are times that I will never forget.
Well, it was fascinating to me because when I watched her ride, I could tell your influence. in terms of the ride. It was kind of fun because it was a shift in the way she'd ridden horses in the past, but I thought she must be also a good student because it was clear you were directing the show.
Yeah, I always direct the show, and we had those boot camp where we rode, and I trained everybody, and we put everybody back on their best riding skill. I'm very much a fan of that, and I like the people to get together and be a team before going to the team competition. I feel there's a lot of beneficial things that can happen being a team before going to the event and working together, working their horses together, knowing their weaknesses, knowing their strength. I think it's a very good thing.
So you had to step away from being a chef to keep in 2023 in February. What can you share with us today about what you're doing to stay current in the sport now?
I stay current in the sport now by watching the odd class that are my favorites. I watched the top 10 in Geneva. I won the Grand Prix. I watched the Grand Prix in Geneva. I watched the odd show. I got some friends that sends me video of the performance just because I don't watch some of the show that they go to. So I stay current with the sport that way. I'm staying a student of the sport.
It's lovely to hear that because I find most riders that have been very successful and continue to be successful have all used that expression that I remain a student of the sport. And I think that is something that is quite unique to show jumping, that you're always learning, you're always growing. What is your hope for the immediate future in the next year or so?
Well, under the FEI, I am suspended for quite some years. To be honest, I will be back. It's a statement that I'm making now that I hope that I can fulfill. It's some days are longer than others. I got to adapt to a smaller way of life and have little things make me happy. Mm-hmm. And for me, I'm going to wait my time. And when my time comes, I will make a comeback.
Well, Eric, if anybody can do it, it's you. You've had your ups and downs in the sports, and you know you've still got a lot of people behind you that wish you every success. And I just wondered, how is your health today? Because you've been through a lot.
Oh, it has its days. Trust me, it's not the same every day. And I have been through a lot. Maybe it's a podcast altogether.
Well, there are a few more episodes, so we might have a podcast just on.
I think we have a few more than a few more. But we'll talk about everything, not leaving any stone unturned, and then give your audience the reality of this.
Well, Eric, I want to thank you so much for not just meeting with me today, but for being so vulnerable and so open about your past and where you're at right now. And I certainly do look forward to sharing more of your story with our listeners. And I'm also wishing you improved health and success. And we really do want to see you back at the competitions, if not riding, at least teaching and training and sharing your gift with other riders who could really benefit from it.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I very much appreciate it.
And if you'd like to learn more about the podcast, upcoming episodes, and guests, please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Horsetails with Kat. And a shout out to our listeners in Belgium and Virginia, as well as Canada. We are getting more listeners in Canada. Typically, I've had more listeners in the US, so glad to hear the local crowd are listening as well.
Hello, listeners. We are having a draw for a free adjustable riding belt from Rachel Ford of PH Clothing Company. All you need to do is follow at PH Clothing Co. on Instagram and message me directly. Good luck and happy riding.